My name is Emma. I'm 34 years old, and my family disinvited me from my sister's wedding, after I spent over $100,000 to pay for it. But before I get into how I set everything ablaze in one unforgettable night, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. It started in the middle of a quarterly board meeting. I was presenting our projections to the executive team when my phone began buzzing across the sleek mahogany conference table. One vibration. I ignored it. Then another. Then another. And another. The CEO stopped mid-sentence, eyes narrowing. Every head turned toward me. Mortified, I muttered a quick apology and stepped into the hallway. My screen was flooded with messages from my mother. The last one stood out, shouting in bold caps. "You're not invited. Maya doesn't want you there." My stomach turned to ice. I reread the message. Once. Twice. Still didn't make sense. I had covered the venue. I had paid the caterer. The band. Even the absurd 5-tier cake that Maya insisted was a non-negotiable. Yet I was being cut out. But instead of exploding, I felt eerily calm. The type of calm that settles right in the eye of a storm. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email, found the thread with the venue manager, and wrote one clean line. Subject: cancellation, Maya's wedding. Please cancel all services under my name. Effective immediately. Thank you. Click. Send. One domino down. Then I straightened my shoulders, walked back into the boardroom, and resumed my presentation like nothing had happened. This was war. As I drove home that night, my mind spun through memories like a slideshow on autopilot. Me at 12, calling a plumber at midnight while my mother paced the hallway, wringing her hands because a pipe burst. Maya was in her room, headphones in, music cranked to full blast. Me at 16, whispering over the phone to arrange a payment plan with the electric company after Dad forgot to pay, again. I didn't get to choose responsibility. I inherited it. I wore competence like a second skin. That instinct carried me through college on a full scholarship, earned me a summa cum laude diploma, and a job offer before I even crossed the stage. Years later, I sold my tech startup and became a millionaire before 30. That same competence, my survival instinct, had gotten me there. That's when the favors started. A new car for Dad. Covering Mom's mortgage when her hours were cut. Maya's security deposit after she got evicted for trashing her last apartment. I never said no. So when Maya called me around midnight, breathless with excitement, screaming about her engagement to Caleb, I didn't question anything. I asked, "What do you need?" "Oh, not much," she chirped. "Just some help with a few deposits." 2 weeks later, she and my mother were sitting in my living room, rolling out a spreadsheet longer than a dinner table. It looked less like a wedding budget and more like a corporate expense report. $120,000. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Maya mumbled something about Caleb's parents maybe contributing. But I could see it, her eyes locked with Mom's. The unspoken agreement was clear. "We'll figure it out, equals Emma will pay for everything." And so I did. In the following months, I wired money like clockwork. Emergency deposits for florists after Maya changed her mind, again. A non-refundable down payment on a custom dress. A hefty retainer for a band Caleb liked for exactly one song. Every receipt, every invoice, I tracked religiously. Organized. Documented. Stored. A part of me, however foolish, believed that maybe, just maybe, this would finally earn me a seat at the table. A real one. Instead, I began to notice the slow but steady shift. The exclusions. The distance. I learned about cake tastings from Facebook posts my mom tagged herself in. I was kicked out of the bridal group chat. Maya left me a clipped voicemail, explaining they wanted to declutter the thread from vendor discussions. The final blow came on a Tuesday. I had stopped by the florist to pay off the final invoice in person. While I waited near the counter, I overheard Maya in the back office, phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking to her maid of honor. Her voice was laced with irritation. "She just makes everything about herself. It's my wedding, not some corporate deal she's managing." Then she laughed. "Honestly, I wish she'd just send the money and stay out of it." It hit me like a punch to the ribs. I stood frozen, breathless. That night, I didn't sleep. The hurt was sharp, real, almost physical. But beneath that pain, something else began to take form, cool, silent, and precise. Clarity. This wasn't love. This was a ledger, a transaction disguised as family. And I had been foolish enough to think otherwise. That night, I made a choice. I wouldn't just walk away. No. I would wait. I would let them build their perfect fantasy, using my money as the foundation. And then, when the timing was just right, I'd take it all back. From that moment on, I was no longer the helpful sister. I was the architect of their downfall. I approached the situation like a seasoned executive vetting a failing company. I documented everything. Every passive-aggressive text, saved as a screenshot. Each receipt and invoice, forwarded to a private email account only I could access. The final confirmation came unexpectedly during a routine call. I was confirming a catering detail with Carol, the kind, soft-spoken woman handling the event. Trying to keep things light, I said, "I'm sure you've been swamped. Maya must be running you in circles." Silence. Then gently, Carol responded, "Sweetheart, her mother told us not to reach out to you. She said you were going through something personal, that we should give you space." Something personal. So vague, so conveniently phrased, so unmistakably cruel. They weren't just spending my money, they were rewriting the narrative of my absence, painting me unstable to explain why I was missing from the very wedding I had bankrolled. I thanked Carol politely, keeping my tone calm even though my pulse was thundering in my ears. That was all I needed. I had everything, the motivation, the documentation, and the perfect trigger. All I had to do was wait for the right moment. It came during the rehearsal dinner, hosted at a breathtakingly overpriced restaurant overlooking the skyline. I had paid for it, of course. The room was filled with polished glasses, overloud laughter, and fake smiles. My family pretended like I was a stranger who had accidentally wandered into their celebration. At one point, my mother leaned toward Caleb's mother, Mrs. Peterson, poised and gracious, and said loud enough for me to hear, "We're just so grateful Emma could be here, even for a short time. She's been under so much pressure lately." When the time came for toasts, I let them all speak first. My dad, my mom, the maid of honor, one after the other, clinking glasses and reciting over-rehearsed sentiment. Then I stood, glass in hand, smile unshaken. "I'd like to share a few thoughts," I said. The room turned. All eyes on me. "Maya, Caleb, wishing you both nothing but happiness." I let the warmth linger in the air for a beat. And I know how much effort it takes to create a perfect evening like this one. For example, this beautiful private dining room? Just $15,000. There was a murmur, confusion, uneasy shifting in chairs. My father's grin stiffened. And this lovely 5-course meal, paired with a curated wine list, $22,000. My tone remained calm, almost clinical. I turned toward Maya. Her complexion paled. And Maya, that exquisite Vera Wang dress you'll wear tomorrow, looked incredible in the preview photos. Worth every cent of the $8,500. Silence. Absolute. Deafening. You could hear forks stilling on plates. Then I looked at Mrs. Peterson directly, my expression softening into one of genuine empathy. "And Mrs. Peterson, thank you for being so understanding. I'm truly grateful I was able to bounce back from the supposed mental health crisis my family mentioned to you. It's a miracle I'm lucid enough to cover the final bill tonight." I sipped from my glass, slowly. Mental wellness matters, doesn't it? My mother's face drained of color. Maya looked like I'd physically struck her. The fantasy they had crafted, carefully scripted, emotionally detached, polished to perfection, collapsed like a house of cards. And I had just lit the match. Without another word, I placed my napkin on the table and quietly made my way toward the exit. They chased after me, of course, Maya and my mother, meeting me at the doors, faces twisted in anger and disbelief. "How could you do this?" Maya spat, eyes brimming with fury. "You ruined everything." I looked her in the eye, calm and unmoved. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No guilt. No regret. Just a deep, liberating stillness. No, Maya, I said softly, but with conviction. I gave you the wedding you always dreamed of. Every last detail. I stepped closer. Think of my absence as your second gift. Effective immediately, I'm no longer part of your life. I walked into the cool night air, leaving them frozen at the threshold of a fantasy I had paid for, but was never welcome in. And I never looked back. A full year passed. 12 months of therapy, setting boundaries, and slowly learning to separate my self-worth from how useful I was to others. I blocked their numbers. I took a quiet vacation to the coast. Tossed my phone into the ocean, metaphorically. I just powered it off for a full week. It felt like freedom. Then one day, a letter arrived. A real one. Stamp and all. It was from Maya. Inside, a simple card with just 5 shaky words. Can we please talk? I'm sorry. We met at a neutral cafe. She looked smaller, worn down. The entitlement in her eyes was gone, replaced with something I'd never seen before, reflection. She told me the wedding never happened. Caleb's family had been horrified. The scandal and shame had shattered the illusion. She had started therapy. She was filing for divorce. It wasn't Caleb's fault, she said quietly, staring into her untouched drink. I built my entire life around what people thought of me. It was all empty. A performance. She looked up, her voice trembling. You just had the courage to knock it all down. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was honesty. And that was something. Life looks different now. My dinner table is surrounded by mismatched chairs and people who don't need anything from me except laughter and presence. I mentor young women starting businesses, helping them build lives on their terms. One of them sent me a note last week that said, "You showed me I'm not anyone's backup plan. I'm the blueprint." For so long, I gave away my seat at the table and called it love. Now I understand, the most meaningful table isn't one you're invited to. It's the one you build for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to tell, but it felt necessary. So I'll ask you, have you ever had to choose between your family and your sense of self-worth? What did you do? Let me know in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing. It truly helps more than you know. Thanks again.